This is Comcast Local Edition. I'm David Kaufer. Now, ordinarily, I'm behind the scenes. I'm the producer of the show, but the crew decided to be nice to me today and let me host the show. And we're gathered here with a couple special guests. Joe Montana, of course, Hall of Fame quarterback with the San Francisco 49ers, among others, and Dr. James Rippey, founder of the Rippey Institute. Gentlemen, why don't you tell us why you're here? Joe, I mean, I know a lot of people know you for football, but there's actually another reason why you'd like to talk.
Yeah, we're part of a campaign, Take Action for Healthy BP. We've been doing this for a couple years now, and we're actually aimed at the 65 million Americans out there who have high blood pressure. And we think it's important for them to maintain and the process that it takes to keep that blood pressure in what we call the BP success zone. There's some things that you got to do, like, for example, medication. When I first found out I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, I was surprised and got started on a medication right away. And the thing that happened was that medication just wasn't enough. And 50% of the people who take medications out there right now are not controlled, even though they believe they are. And that's how I was. So I ended up getting with my doctor and got me started on another medication called Latrell, which is a combination of two medicines.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And what I take may not be right for everyone. So, you know, what we try to do is say, hey, you got to get out there and get with your doctor and find out what medication's right for you.
Right.
And you know, they also started me on a better exercise routine and looked at my diet, which was not the greatest.
Was not the greatest, no. And I guess that would be probably pretty typical, I would imagine, Doctor. I mean, a lot of people are surprised they find out they have high blood pressure.
Well, Joe's case is very similar to a lot of people's cases. In fact, 70% of people with high blood pressure are not controlled. And so one of the things that Joe and I are trying to do in this campaign, which is Take Action for Healthy BP, is go around and say to people, look, get your blood pressure measured, get into a dialogue with your doctor, get into what we're calling the BP success zone. I think a lot of people, particularly in the San Francisco area, would say, well, if Joe Cool can have blood pressure, then have high blood pressure, then maybe I can too. And as a cardiologist, I can tell you that it's one of the leading risks for heart disease. So it's really important that people get into this dialogue with their doctor. Joe's also very typical in the sense that over 50% of people who have high blood pressure will require two medicines.
Okay. Now,
Joe happens to get them in one tablet, the medicine Latrell. And it's important to understand it's a powerful medicine. Pregnant women shouldn't take this. You know, check with your doctor. But Joe's been wonderful in terms of getting the message out that get that blood pressure taken, get into the dialogue. We have a website that has a lot of information I think you're going to give to people.
Yeah, we'll be showing that a little bit.
HealthyBP.com. And they get a lot of information that Joe and I have put together about how to get their blood pressure under control.
And this isn't a new campaign. We were just talking before we went on the air that you've been working on this a couple of years.
Yeah, we've been at it for a few years now, and you know, we've had a lot of success with it. We've run into a lot of people who are out there coming to us and saying, hey, you know, we heard what you guys were talking about. I went and got my blood pressure checked.
So you're getting that feedback.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of feedback.
That's
actually,
great.
A real good close friend of mine didn't want to tell me that he went and got his check, but then after he got it checked, found out it was high, he did tell me. So
it's really, you know, one of the things that's really important is Joe's been under good control. His blood pressure's been under good control for 2 years. And so getting people to understand it's not a one-shot deal, that you gotta take your medicine every day. Joe's family insists that he takes it every day.
Yeah, I get a lot of help from my family. You know,
well, I'm sure.
Between making sure I check my blood pressure on a weekly basis, or maybe a little bit less than that, but they're always they want me to put it on the blood pressure cuff on there.
So you're actually checking it at home as well. I mean, you're the whole package. Like you said, it really is a lifestyle.
My kids moved the salt shaker because I would love that salt.
That's something else you've got to be aware of. Is this something we're going to see more of as the baby boomers start aging?
Absolutely. There's a 10% increase in the prevalence of hypertension per decade. By the time you're in your 60s and 70s, you have an 80% chance of having high blood pressure. 1 out of 3 adults in the United States has high blood pressure, and the big problem is people aren't getting their blood pressure, they aren't getting it measured, and they're not getting on good medicines, taking care of themselves as Joe has. So it's very important.
It's very important. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for watching. I'm David Kaufer. This is Comcast Local Edition. This is Comcast Local Edition. I am David Kaufer, and we're joined today with Joe Montana, former San Francisco 49er, and Dr. James Rippey, founder of the Rippey Institute. Is that correct?
Rippey Lifestyle Institute, right.
Okay, that's great. And we're here to talk about blood pressure, high blood pressure campaign. Both of you have been working on for a couple of years. And Joe, again, before we went on the air, we were talking about how you were surprised when you found out, I guess it was 2002, that you had pretty high blood pressure.
Yeah, I was shocked because I just was going in for my yearly physical, and just like a lot of people out there, I didn't know what my blood pressure was and had no idea. And you know what? There's no symptoms with it, so it's really hard to tell.
Sure.
So when I went in for the physical, the doctor, it was so high, she sent me straight to the cardiologist right away that day. So
what was that like?
Well, it was kind of scary, but it was right in front of me. I was shocked because I knew my mom had it, and her brothers, and her father passed away.
So there
at
was
54.
the history.
So I had a little family history. Yeah. But I was lucky with my doctor. I got in there and we got started on a program, got started on a medication that also, the first medication, I was also surprised didn't help me. Most guys, hey, give me a pill and I'm out of here, I'm fine. Well, luckily she stayed on top of it because I actually required another medicine, which is a combination of two called Latrell.
Okay,
and that helped me get my blood pressure under control. But the thing is, what I take may not be right for everyone else. So, the important thing is to make sure you get
work with your doctor.
Yes.
And Dr. Rippey, again, is this fairly common that we're seeing, again, people who think that they're healthy, active, and go in and find out that their blood pressure is a lot higher than they would expect? Yeah,
well, here's a relatively young athlete, younger than me anyway, and he comes in and he's fit, and he's been a professional athlete, and people say, well, gee, if Joe Montana can have high blood pressure, maybe I could have high blood pressure. His story is actually very consistent. It's very common.
Right.
70% of the 65 million people who have high blood pressure are not under control. And as Joe mentioned, there are no symptoms. So you've got to get into a dialogue, get started with your doctor. The program that we're doing called Take Action for Healthy BP is designed to get people thinking about this, get into a dialogue with their doctor. And we're trying to encourage people to get into what we call the BP success zone. And Joe is on a medication that has gotten him into that zone, the medicine Latrell. And it's important to understand that this medicine isn't for everyone. Pregnant women shouldn't take it. But a lot of people have the illusion, well, gee, if I'm exercising and eating properly, I can't have a high blood pressure.
That takes care of it all, right?
But the vast majority of people will require medication in addition to that. And unfortunately, 90% of people who have high blood pressure, we don't know why they have it. So if we can get people to get it checked, then we will have done what...
Then you can actually control it and deal with it. It's dealing with what you know rather than trying to figure out.
And the reason we care about this as a cardiologist, the reason that I care about it is because high blood pressure is a leading risk factor for both heart disease and stroke. And so what Joe has done is really significantly lowered his risk of those really significant diseases.
And you said this is, again, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it is a lifestyle, and actually it's been great because my family's been a big part of it.
That's great.
And to make sure that I always, I have one of those blood pressure cuffs you can get at the local drugstore to help me monitor, and they're always making sure.
And you're doing that weekly, or?
I do it sometimes weekly. I have it next to my bed, so I just do it whenever I feel like it. And or the kids are always there. Hey, put it on me. Have you checked yours? They always check, or they're moving the salt shaker from the table, because I love. Unfortunately, I like salt.
Yeah, well, most of us do. I mean,
the good news here is that Joe has had a consistent program for the last 2 years. It's not a one-shot deal. Once you get it, if you have high blood pressure, you've got to have it every day. You've got to take your medicine and do the right things. And so, consistency and compliance are very important. And having this discussion with your doctor is critically important if we're going to lower the risk of heart disease and stroke. And it's such an easy thing to do. People have got to go out and get this information.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much for joining me and being on Comcast Local Edition. This is David Kaufer here on Comcast Local Edition. Thanks for watching.